The green hero is stuck forever, the unexpected price of saving the world from bugs. The sky over the Nevada desert was torn apart by fire. It was an above-ground nuclear test, one of the last moments mankind dared to unleash such furious energy. As the fiery orange mushroom cloud bloomed across the horizon, the consequences were already unfolding. 85 miles east, deep in the desert scrubland, a federal inspector named Will Campbell wandered, lost and desperate. But far away from that terrible scene of destruction, a small yet equally momentous meeting was taking place. 860 miles to the east, a young Jennifer Walters arrived on a porch carrying her suitcase. She was meeting her cousin for the very first time. He sat quietly on the steps, a nervous, bespectacled boy named Bruce Banner, clutching a toy rifle. They had no idea the fiery fate that would eventually bind them together. Inside a sterile, brightly lit command center, the air crackled with tension. Nick Fury, the grizzled director, leaned back, his cigar smoke curling around his perpetually stern face. He spoke with explosive frustration. "I don't care what you say. This whole deal stinks." A calm, disembodied voice responded immediately from the unseen monitors. "Your objection has been noted, Colonel, as has your attitude. Surely we don't have to remind you that this organization has an obligation to protect the American people?" Fury slammed his fist down. "Don't wave the flag at me, fella. I was busting my butt for Uncle Sam when you and your pals were still getting your lunch through a tube. And the last I heard, we still had a constitution in this country that guarantees a whole bunch of rights to every single citizen, even if they happen to be 7 feet tall and green." The authority figure remained unmoved, their tone shifting to clinical concern. Holographic projections of the two green giants floated between them, the massive, frowning Hulk and the lithe, intelligent She-Hulk, currently wearing the Fantastic Four's uniform. Fury, leaning back, took another puff of his cigar. "Yeah, so? I also know Reed Richards, and I'll bet you he didn't invite the She-Hulk to become a member of the Fantastic Four without checking her out real close. They've gone toe-to-toe with the Hulk enough times that they wouldn't want She-Hulk in their group if there was any chance of her turning nasty." The voice on the monitor was clinical. "Nevertheless, Fury, as much as we respect the credentials of Mr. Fantastic, SHIELDT, has a clear duty in this situation." Fury jabbed a finger forward, asserting his authority. "Yeah, well, I'm still executive director of this little social club. Maybe I'll just put the kibosh on this project before it even gets started." "You can't do that, Nick." "You know you can't." The command voice cut him off, finality in the tone. "These orders come directly from the Commander-in-Chief himself." Fury slumped in his chair, frustrated. He let out a curt, disgusted, Then he rose, a plan already forming. "Well, there ain't a whole bunch I can do about that, but there is something I can do. SHIELD owes me about 20 years of vacation time, and I'm gonna take it, as of right now." The intense green glow of Jennifer Walters, the sensational She-Hulk, filled the living room. She stood poised and powerful in her bright red outfit, her dark, wild hair framing a face that was usually full of mischief, but now held a faraway, pensive look. She was utterly lost in thought, her arms crossed defensively. A man carrying a box overflowing with groceries walked through the doorway, stopping short as he noticed her mood. "Hello, Jen." Jen?" he asked, his tone worried, like wary as himself. "Is something the matter?" Wyatt stood patiently, groceries still in hand. "Jen?" he asked again, continuing from before. Jennifer finally acknowledged him, a flicker of awareness crossing her face. "Oh, Wyatt. Hi, lover. I didn't hear you come in. Sorry, I'm a bit distracted just now." She turned away again, looking out at the city skyline. Wyatt gave a wry, gentle smirk. "Tell me something I don't know." Wyatt Wingfoot is a big expert at reading body language, and when the body in question covers several acres, it's pretty hard to miss. Jennifer sighed, running a hand through her thick green hair. "Oh, I've just noticed the date, that's all. I've been having so much fun playing superhero it almost slipped past me. But tomorrow is my cousin Bruce's birthday." Her voice grew soft, laced with genuine sorrow. Darn it all, Wyatt. Bruce Banner was the sweetest, kindest man I ever met, or would have been if. She hesitated, struggling with the thought of what Bruce had become. It just isn't fair. Something so horrible should have happened to him. Present company accepted, of course. Wyatt gently set the groceries down, his face full of concern. It doesn't take much to tell. Distracted doesn't really convey your mood. What is truly wrong? He stepped toward her, pulling the powerful green woman into a gentle, supportive embrace. Wyatt gently cradled Jennifer's face, speaking softly. Life is very rarely fair, Jennifer. The best we can do is take whatever it throws at us and try to turn it into something useful. The tragedy of Bruce Banner's life is virtually equal, but at least the world gained something out of it, you. Without a Hulk, there would never have been a She-Hulk, and without She-Hulk, there'd never have been us. Jennifer leaned into his touch, her eyes glistening. You're right. Thanks, babe. You always know the right thing to say. Wyatt brightened, pulling 2 tickets from his pocket. Now, I have here 2 tickets for the show Reed and Sue, so highly recommended. What say we try to forget the woes of the world for an evening and just enjoy ourselves? She-Hulk's mood instantly lifted, a playful grin replacing her sorrow. Ooh, sounds good to me, and I know just how I want to start. In a swift, powerful move, she bent down, grabbing Wyatt and hoisting him over her shoulder. Hey, he yelled in surprise, laughing. Meanwhile, far above the city, the cold, calculated world of espionage kept watch. The target, Jennifer Walters. Agent Dum-Dum Dugan, with his thick red mustache and signature bowler hat, leaned over the surveillance map. All right, let me know when you got an exact pinpoint. We don't want to move too far through civilian traffic. The younger, red-haired agent confirmed, narrowing focus. I think we've got her. He looked puzzled by Dugan's insistence on such precision. Roger, Dum-Dum, but why the need for precision? Surely within a few dozen yards is enough? Dugan growled, adjusting his hat. Call it delay-in tactics. I don't much care for this assignment, and I want written confirmation on it before we go ahead. The young agent grinned enthusiastically, waving a document. And you got it, sir. Signed by the executive director himself. Dugan took the paper, gazing at the signature. Boy, Nick Fury's signature. Wouldn't I love to take that home and show the kids? Makes you want to bend a regulation just once, doesn't it? Dugan pulled out a lighter. Don't even think it, kiddo. He immediately set the paper ablaze, a defiant act against the orders he couldn't officially defy. Okay, stand by intercept units. 20 minutes to commencement of Operation Green Jeans. Wyatt, having regained his balance, straightened his clothes and called toward the inner room with a touch of impatience. Jen, are you nearly finished in there? We're running a little behind schedule. The door swung open and Jennifer Walters emerged, spectacular in her 7-foot frame. She was dressed not in a cocktail dress, but a dazzling white bodysuit, complete with a crisp collar, bow tie, and cuffs, owning the whole provocative look with pure confidence. She gave Wyatt a knowing, mischievous grin. Wyatt rubbed the back of his head, slightly perplexed. Well, is that really your idea of street clothes these days, Jen? She-Hulk smiled sweetly. Sure, it's pointless for me to try to wear conventional clothes. This outfit allows me freedom of movement with a touch more pizzazz than my Fantastic Four uniform. Besides, I'm 6'7" and bright green. People are gonna stare no matter how I dress. So, unless you're terminally embarrassed to be seen in public with me, let's head for the East Village. With that, she stepped out onto the busy, neon-lit street, her bright presence instantly drawing attention as she flagged down a yellow cab. This'll do fine, driver. Inside the cab, the elderly, mustachioed driver, clearly terrified, fumbled with his mic. Back 231 to Central. Bernie, this is Al. I'm taking the rest of the night off. My nerves are shot. Jennifer watched him panic, turning to Wyatt with amusement. Poor guy. It seems as if even New Yorkers will never get used to having super beings in their midst. No doubt he expected at any moment to have his cab demolished by Dr. Doom. Wyatt replied, acknowledging the cabbie's fright. Not too much chance of that anymore. But I guess I can understand how it is. Jennifer agreed, observing the passers-by. I've only been in this business for a short while, and I still get an occasional shock when I look in the mirror. At least you have the advantage of anonymity when you wish it. She flashed a bright, confident smile. True. I'm not stuck in this form like Bruce had become as the Hulk, or how Ben Grimm is as the Thing. I'm She-Hulk almost all the time because I want to be. Because it's exciting. Wyatt nodded, linking arms with her. That's something we really have in common, you and I. I came back to New York instead of becoming chief of my tribe because I missed the sheer thrill of living that I experienced with my friends in the Fantastic Four. Jennifer squeezed his arm happily. Well, whatever your motive, this is one big green lady lawyer who's glad you came. They arrived outside the Orpheum, which advertised Little Shop of Horrors. Hulk looked at Wyatt, a spark of pure mischief in her eyes. Now we can share the excitement. Together? Without another word, she bent down and seized a car that was blocking the entrance, intending to move it. They arrived outside the Orpheum, which advertised Little Shop of Horrors. She-Hulk looked at Wyatt, a spark of pure mischief in her eyes. Now we can share the excitement. Together? The playful evening was shattered by the abrupt appearance of specialized SIHIELD intercept units, huge hulking figures encased in brilliant yellow heavy armor. One armored figure, designated L3, stepped forward, issuing a command that cut through the city noise. Okay, stand back everybody. This is official SIELD business. Wyatt Wingfoot, step clear. We're not interested in you today. Now move it, She-Hulk, you're under arrest. She-Hulk stared, her green eyes wide with genuine shock, her cheerful mood instantly gone. Arrest? She demanded, stepping right up to the armored figure. Her voice took on the sharp, precise tone of a seasoned lawyer. Hold the phone, Ironsides. Let's see some paper on that first. I assume you've got a warrant? The agent's voice was clipped and aggressive, entirely dismissive of her legal challenge. Hey, wake up and smell the coffee, Greenie. We're SIELD. We don't need warrants. She-Hulk was having none of the arrogant dismissal. With a powerful motion, she slapped the heavy faceplate of the nearest armored agent. In again, pal. 1984 came and went. The agent reeled back, stunned, then roared a command. Blast her, knock her out, fast. A powerful burst of energy erupted, slamming into She-Hulk and sending her hurtling backward in a bright yellow streak over the horrified crowd. Scorched earth was left in her wake. As the assault team moved in to follow up the attack, the lead agent barked a warning to the surrounding citizens. Civilians, clear the area. This is a top priority command. Anyone interfering with us will face federal prosecution. Wyatt pushed through the crowd, confronting the heavy armor of Agent L5 head-on. Way, my friend. She-Hulk happens to be one of the good guys. You don't rouse her without adequate reason. The nearby crowd, already agitated, voiced their support. Never so what, come on, people. Let's show these tin-plated Nazis. This is still the USAA. Wyatt glanced back at Jennifer, who was already on her feet. It's okay, baby, I gotcha. But those clowns sure don't seem too concerned about the welfare of the public, do they? He barely finished the sentence before the massive yellow armor unleashed another powerful energy pulse. The explosion tore through the immediate area, sending Wyatt and the other civilians flying through the air. Jennifer stared, horrified, screaming his name. Wyatt! The agent's voice was cold and resolute amid the chaos. She-Hulk, refusing to be stunned, spun around midair and landed a mighty roundhouse kick right into the armored agent's chassis, the impact echoing. She didn't pause, shouting a quick order to Wyatt. So do me a favor and see if you can get the civilians to clear out while I finish up the Gestapo here. The agent staggered but quickly brought its specialized weapon to bear, the barrel extending from its forearm. Change assault mode. Hit her with the neurostunner. A focused, high-intensity beam shot out, striking Jennifer directly. The force overwhelmed her, and she collapsed hard onto a pile of refuse. Disoriented and dizzy, she mumbled weakly, Anna, who turned on the merry-go-round. The moment of disorientation passed. Jennifer shook her head, muttering through gritted teeth, Maybe so, but not so much. I can't do this. Driven by a sudden surge of focus, she channeled her strength. With a mighty heave, she lifted the vehicle she had previously intended to move, slamming it down upon the armored agent with a violent. She straightened up, her gaze now sharp and deadly serious. It worked. I hated to smash up private property like that, but it got the stun ray out of commission. Looks like it only worked when it was beaming at me. Now let's see how tough those turkeys are. Her voice was challenging, legalistic, and utterly ready for a fight. When I start seriously clipping their wings, goo! Jennifer spun into action, a whirlwind of green muscle and white spandex striking both armored agents simultaneously. She laughed, enjoying the ease of the fight. Nighty-night, boys. The impact hit like a crash. Inside the damaged armor, Agent L5 swore in frustration. Damn it all, she wasn't supposed to be this tough. He immediately switched on the comms, broadcasting his distress. Unit 5 to Central. Unit 5 to Central, we cannot contain target. Request emergency pullout. Full quadrant transportation. Jennifer stared, utterly baffled. Huh? What? What? Jennifer stared at the armored agents, who seemed to be dematerializing right in front of her. The street, the grocery store, and the theater entrance dissolved into a bright flash of pure yellow light, consuming everyone present. She felt the sickening lurch of instantaneous transport. When the light cleared, the pavement and the storefront were gone, replaced by a massive, curved, metallic yellow chamber, a SETHIELD staging platform. She-Hulk and Wyatt Wingfoot were now surrounded by several fully intact armored agents, having been teleported directly into the heart of the operation. She finished her confused question. Say? The group materialized inside the huge yellow transport chamber, only to be immediately confronted by SETHIELD guards armed with rifles. One barked an order, pointing, "Okay, everybody just hold it right there. Murphy, separate out the civilians for debriefing." She-Hulk, "Don't you even breathe," Jennifer replied with characteristic sass, shrugging off the deadly seriousness of the moment. "Sorry, if I stop doing that, it'll disappoint my millions of fans, so I'll have to keep right on breathing and moving. Gonna need one of the drivers we was one of out his with her too." She-Hulk seized the nearest armored unit, hurling it across the chamber at the armed guards. The armor unit sailed through the air like a metallic football. Wyatt called out, impressed, "Nicely done, She-Hulk." That slowed them down substantially. Jennifer, triumphant and taking charge, waved the civilians forward. "Good. Now follow me, everyone. Let's find a way out of this leftover Star Trek set." But one of the civilians, looking desperately around the enclosed metallic space, pointed. "But there's no door this way?" Jennifer rolled her eyes at the civilian's observation. Details, details, details. We're never going to get anywhere if you're going to go clouding the issue with facts. She turned to the sterile blue wall, gathering her massive strength. Her eyes held a challenge as she drove a mighty fist into the metal. The chamber responded with a violent, wrenching tear in the expensive SETHIELD tech. "You've got a door," she roared triumphantly, creating their exit. She-Hulk led the stunned civilians and Wyatt through the jagged hole she had ripped in the wall. The path ahead was a narrow, high-tech corridor, gleaming blue and white. "Looks like some kind of maintenance tunnel," she observed confidently. "This ought to get us somewhere. Stay close, people. I can protect you from these junior G-men, but only if we keep in a tight unit." As they ventured further into the labyrinthine blue, a sudden tension gripped the group. Ahead of them, deep within the sterile tunnels, a haggard, cloaked man stumbled into view. He was gaunt, his face hidden beneath a heavy beard, clutching something white. But the most disturbing feature was the sickly, pallid green of his exposed skin, barely concealed beneath his tattered clothes. This tormented, mutated figure, a terrifying echo of Jennifer's own Gamma origin, glanced back at the intruders. Then, without a sound, the figure turned and rushed down the converging corridor, sprinting toward the blinding yellow light at the center of the complex, vanishing into the structure's depths. Jennifer, marching through the maintenance tunnel, reasoned aloud. "We've got to keep heading upwards. The only place all this hardware could be is underneath the city's streets. Wyatt confirmed, yes, that sounds like the way I've heard SHIELD operates. But I'm surprised they have no internal defense systems too. Before he could finish, a thick cloud of gas erupted from a vent. Jennifer snapped, pushing him back. Bite your tongue, lover. Will. She pressed her hand against a steel plate. This wall feels cooler. Must be an outside surface. I hope so. This is our last. With a catastrophic roaring, Jennifer smashed through the thick steel wall, dragging Wyatt with her. They tumbled out onto a vast concrete floor filled with the silhouettes of jet fighters and heavy machinery. Jennifer stared, bewildered. What the heck? Where are we? It looks like an airfield, but Wyatt coughed, brushing himself off. Looks like you and I are the only ones who made it out, Jen. But what's that awful noise? Jennifer pointed toward a distant structure. Complain to the Environmental Protection Agency later. There's some kind of stairway over there. The moment She-Hulk broke through that final wall, the noise and confusion were replaced by an overwhelming, terrifying silence. Because the airfield wasn't beneath the city streets, it was the launch bay of a massive, dark gray cylindrical space station currently orbiting high above the Earth. In the blackness of space, stars glittered around a luminous full moon, near which a small F-16 jet fired a laser, futilely trying to attack the gargantuan structure. The Jennifer stared at the breathtaking, impossible sight of the Earth curving beneath them and the massive scale of the ship they were currently on. Only one word could capture the reality of their situation: nuts. She-Hulk quickly processed the impossible view. We're on SHIELD's flying aircraft carrier. I really should have guessed. Wyatt, taking in the armed agents surrounding them, nodded grimly. All right, Jen, we'll have to go along with them for a bit. I appreciate that, Jen, but I still wonder what these clowns are up to. We're way too high for me to risk jumping, especially carrying you. An agent barked orders as they moved. Keep moving, keep moving. Wingfoot, stand clear of She-Hulk. As they complied, walking across the massive hangar floor, a fresh-faced blonde agent stepped forward holding a weapon. He grinned suggestively and delivered a shocking command to the towering green woman. Okay, Greenie, strip. She-Hulk stopped dead in her tracks, utterly stunned and insulted. Oh, say what? The agent, holding his weapon steady, smirked. You heard me. Now drop him, or you can bury your boyfriend at Wounded Knee. Wyatt interjected quickly, urging caution. She-Hulk, don't. Your legal rights. Jennifer sighed dramatically, cutting him off. Don't count for much around these parts, I expect. Well, I can always write a nasty note to my congressman later. She paused, fixing the agents with a look of dry amusement. Funny thing, though, I remember when SHIELD was the good guys. I guess that's the trouble with paramilitary spy groups. They tend to start out as the Secret Service and end up as the KGB. Seems like it's all been downhill since they canceled the man from UNCLEN. With a shrug, she began to unbutton and pull off her white jacket and bow tie, revealing the low-cut style of her white bodysuit beneath. The agents visibly gulped, flustered by her brazen compliance. Jennifer tossed the clothing contemptuously to the floor. She looked down at the visibly uncomfortable men. All right, bright boys, now what? Maybe you'd like me to jump rope for you. Up in the command center, Dum-Dum Dugan was already agitated. Yogurnit! What the heck's keeping Dooley? He should have finished processing those runaways 20 minutes ago. The other civilians he collared have already been cleared and returned to the ground. Dugan stormed over to the holding area where She-Hulk and Wyatt stood. Dooley, what is all this? We ain't in the habit of paying field officers to stand around like a bunch of old gran. His voice died in his throat as his eyes fell upon the magnificent, nearly nude She-Hulk. Jennifer looked directly at him, a subtle smirk playing on her lips. Evening, Gramps? I take it you're in charge of this stag party? Dugan quickly covered his bowler hat and hissed furiously at the smug young agent. Dooley, what the hell's going on here? Dooley, however, was pleased with himself, citing policy like a good little bureaucrat. General Order 09er 57, Director. All prisoners to be strip-searched before being cleared into minimum security holding areas. Never thought I'd be so pleased to enforce a regulation. Director Dugan exploded at the arrogant agent, yelling, "Strip searched? You goddamn idiot. That's supposed to be done in a private cell by an agent of the same sex. I call this gross misuse of authority." Dooley merely sneered. "You haven't heard the last of this, Dugan." Dugan threw up his hands in disgust. "Save the threats, Dooley. I've heard worse men than you, and I'm still laughing. Okay, I want to see the She-Hulk in my office in 10 minutes, and get the lady a smock for Christ's sake." Moments later, Jennifer, now clothed in a borrowed shirt, sat across the command desk from Dugan. He offered a grudging apology. "I'm sorry this happened the way it did, ma'am. Our orders were to pick you up for analysis, not subject you to that kind of—" She-Hulk waved off the apology with a bored look. "Forget it, Director. Being drooled over by a bunch of emotionally retarded little boys is nothing compared to being hijacked, or should I make that kidnapped by your people. Now, what's the story?" Dugan leaned forward, lowering his voice seriously. "I'm not sure myself, She-Hulk. If them orders hadn't come in writing from Colonel Fury himself, I'd never have gone along with it. Seems, though, that the top boys are worried you might pose a potential threat to civilian safety. They want to make sure you ain't gonna go nasty on us like the Hulk did. That understand?" Jennifer's expression hardened, taking on her legal intensity. "I can understand the concern. Felt it myself more than once. It's the methods I have to question. Or does S.IELD really consider itself outside the law these days?" Jennifer gave him a moment, waiting for his philosophical turmoil to pass. Dugan sighed, leaning back in his chair. "I just don't know anymore. SHIELD is the Supreme Headquarters International Espionage Law Enforcement Division. Law enforcement. When I joined up with this bunch, I thought we were going to be the law, not be above it. Evaz, but times change. You'll change. Sometimes I stand in the middle of this whole situation and feel like a stranger. Like I don't know what we're supposed to be all about anymore." "Oh," he shook his head. Sorry. Forgive and forget. I was rambling about the troubles of your own. You don't need to hear mine." "Excuse me a minute." A signal light was flashing on his console. "Special Director Dugan," he answered the comms. "Yes, sir. I did file a report against Dooley." Dugan's eyes widened, his face paling as he listened to the voice on the other end. "What? You can't be serious, sir?" But yes, sir." He dropped the receiver with a sigh, defeated. "I guess Dooley really does have friends in high places after all. I've been ordered back to Washington." The blonde agent, Dooley, entered the office immediately, a grin spread across his face, standing beside a stunned Wyatt and Jennifer. "And I'm in charge until Fury returns." Dooley, now fully embracing his power trip, issued orders with a smug grin. "Okay, Dugan, you've got 3 minutes to haul your butt down to the shuttle bay. Wingfoot, we've prepared special quarters for you. We want your girlfriend to know we're taking proper care of you. And She-Hulk, you're coming with me." Jennifer, face set in fierce determination, followed Dooley into a pristine examination room dominated by technology. A nervous, bespectacled scientist waited there. "In here, Greenie. Levine, you set up and ready yet?" "Ready as I'll ever be. You know this kind of examination isn't strictly my field." Jennifer stepped forward, her sarcasm sharp. "Then you'd better be extra careful and extra thorough." Dooley ignored her warning. "Okay, She-Hulk, one more time. Off with those clothes." Jennifer crossed her arms, fixing him with an icy stare. "Your one-track mind is getting to be a bore, Dooley." Scientist Levine, looking truly panicked, attempted to intervene. Listen, that really isn't necessary." Dooley physically pushed the scientist aside, his eyes gleaming with satisfaction. "And I say it is, Gaffer, me ol' mate. And as of now, we're playing this game by my rules." "All right, it's now 9:47. The cold digital clock glowed 3001 a.m. Wyatt Wingfoot watched helplessly from behind the bars of his containment cell as 2 guards carried the unconscious form of She-Hulk past his door. "Jen," he yelled, pounding on the bars in fury. "You miserable bastards. What have you done to her?" Dooley, the smug director, stood nearby, indifferent to Wyatt's distress. Just stand clear of the door, Wingfoot, unless you want some of the same." The agents tossed Jennifer roughly onto the floor of an empty cell. Wyatt glared, fists clenched. Dooley continued, addressing his guards over Wyatt's frantic pleas. "Okay, boys, toss her in with Geronimo. When she wakes up, Wingfoot, tell her she's got 2 hours to rest up. Then we start again." The guards smirked, closing the cell door on the prone heroine. Wyatt rushed over, his face pressed against the bars. Jen, can you hear me? Say, what have they?" Wyatt quickly offered what comfort he could through the bars. "Easy, babe, easy. Don't talk. Save your strength. It's all right. It's not as bad as it looks. Oh, I'm just worn out. Feel like I've been through. He passed her a cup of coffee. "Here, take a sip of coffee. It's not exactly hot anymore, but the caffeine might boost your energy." Jennifer took a deep draught. Thanks. That was really something else. I've been poked and prodded and probed in places I didn't even know I had." Wyatt lowered his voice, concerned. "Why didn't you resist them?" She-Hulk looked him directly in the eye, the sadness of their situation clear. "Because of you, sweetie. As long as they've got you, I'm gonna play nice, even if it kills me." She gestured toward her cell. "What about you? Have you tried to bust out of this cage at all?" Wyatt shook his head. "Not much chance of that, I'm afraid. These bars are too close together for me to squeeze through and too strong for me to bend. Plus, there's a weight-sensitive alarm system. If the weight in this cage varies by more than 1 or 2 pounds, this room floods with cyanide gas." He pointed to a small gauge on the wall reading 945. "At least, that's what they told me, and that gizmo on the wall tends to lend credence to their claims." Jennifer grips the bars of her cage, testing the metal. "Well, that sucks. And these bars feel like some distant cousin to adamantium. They're probably too tough for me, even if I wasn't completely shagged out." She turned to Wyatt. "But we've got to get out of here while the two of us are still together and before the goon squad comes back." "Wyatt, do you think you could press the equivalent of my weight?" Wyatt frowned, rubbing his chin. "Well, I'm not exactly a 98-pound weakling to be sure, but 650 pounds? Jennifer quickly hushed him, glancing around the sterile room. "Hush up, blabbermouth. Didn't your mama ever tell you it isn't polite to reveal a gal's most intimate secrets? Now climb up on the shelf here and brace yourself against the ceiling." Wyatt immediately caught on to her desperate scheme to cheat the weight sensor. Oh, of course, I understand. Ready when you are." He climbed onto the large box. Jennifer stabilized the shifting weight, looking resolute. "Okay, I'll try and take this slow and easy. Let's hope there aren't any hidden cameras we've overlooked. These bars are too close together for the She-Hulk, even if I wasn't exhausted. But I have one ace up my sleeve that these bozos probably haven't considered. I got turned into the She-Hulk by a blood transfusion from my cousin Bruce, and that gave me a dose of the gamma radiation that turns him into the Hulk. But it gave me something else, something Bruce didn't have. I'm She-Hulk by choice. And any time I feel like it, I can stop being the She-Hulk and be plain old Jennifer Walters again." As she spoke, the intense green color began receding from her skin, melting away into normal human tones. Her massive frame shrank back to normal size, leaving her in the white shirt, her legs now human, squeezed tightly by the bars. And now squeezing through these bars is no problem at all, no alarms either. I think my fiendish plan is working. Jennifer Walters carefully slid between the cage bars, pushing her body through the narrow gap. On the other side of the door, Wyatt strained, sweat pouring down his face as he desperately maintained his pose on the shelf, his muscles bulging. But not for long if you don't find the off switch to that scale. I'm pushing hard enough to break my back, maintaining the weight of both of us. Jennifer Walters reached the control panel. "Be brave, my brave, my brave." This'll take a moment or two. I'm afraid none of these buttons are labeled for function. But there's only 3 of them, so there must be some logic to it. On would be one, off would be another. The third probably sets the desired weight. She pressed the third red button. Off. Wyatt sagged, relieved, but still inside the cage. "The Anuvabagun. You aren't dead." "It would work, Jen. I guess there are advantages to thinking like a lawyer." Jennifer turned back to him, hands on her hips. "Now, how can we get me out of here?" Wyatt tried to reassure her. "Oh, drat. I hadn't thought of that. I couldn't bend these bars from the inside, so I can't do it now either." That leaves us close to being back where we started." He looked at her with renewed concern. "I think you'd better start doing what you have to do and stop worrying about me." Jennifer shook her head firmly. "No can do, lover. You wouldn't be in this mess at all if not for me. They'd kick me out of the Superfolk Union if I pulled you out of the fire. Besides, it'd be a crime against nature to let anything happen to those buns." She gave his backside a playful tap through the bars. "We've got about an hour and a half before Dooley and company come back for me. Hopefully that'll be enough time to find a way out for both of us. Give me luck." Jennifer turned and sprinted down the long, blue-lit corridor, shedding her cautious civilian mindset with every step. Her resolve had hardened. She needed power, not stealth. As she passed a set of startled SHIELDD agents, the familiar, potent energy of gamma radiation surged through her body, causing her slender form to immediately begin swelling back toward its glorious 7-foot height. Her skin changed instantly to emerald green, restoring the massive power she had willingly surrendered. The nearest agent pointed down, yelling in disbelief as her feet expanded, tearing the clothes she wore. A startled agent grabbed Jennifer Walters just as her transformation began, watching her feet swell in horror. "Ooh, nuts. Mitch, hey!" Jennifer ducked past him, rushing down the corridor, now small and nimble. A second frantic agent shouted into his intercom, "Get after her! Get after her!" Rhina. "All sections. Alert! Alert! Intruder in Section 103, Level 9er." He rattled off the description to a stunned operative. "Who's the intruder? Describe." "Female Caucasian, about 30, 5'6", brown hair, wearing a SETASH-IELD issue smock and no shoes." Meanwhile, Director Dooley received the alert at his command station. Confident that the Green Giant was still locked away, he reacted harshly to the news of the new intruder. "No, go to Alert Station Yellow. Seal all stations adjacent to 103 from Level 6 through Level 12, and get a squad of armed agents to Security Pen 24. This intruder may be trying to reach She-Hulk and Wingfoot. Orc and move." Dooley, reviewing the security monitors, was seething with self-important rage. Of all the blasted cock-ups, this whole operation has been a mess. Fury, Dugan, I wouldn't be a bit surprised if this was all they're doing. The old fools. I'll have their tails bronzed before I'm through. As he vented, a rough, claw-like hand shot out from behind, gripping his throat with shocking speed and immense pressure. Dooley gasped, his voice immediately cut off. "Hey, who the hell are Pushins?" The attacker stepped forward, revealed to be the pallid, sickly green figure they called Geronimo, the haggard man they had locked in a cell near Wyatt. Dooley stared in horror, clutching at the throttling hand around his neck. Who, what are you?" The creature's eyes were vacant, his face expressionless as he tightened his grip. "No, Don her girl." Dooley choked, fighting desperately against the monstrous force that suddenly held his life in its hands. The haggard creature, Geronimo, pulled the arrogant Dooley close, forcing a terrifying, unnatural contact. It wasn't a kiss, but a violation, a complete transfer of essence. Geronimo's body went limp and fell away, leaving Dooley standing alone, his eyes wide and vacant. A new, cold voice echoed from the agent, speaking with the authority of multiple minds. "Hear us, human. Do not resist. Yeah, we control you now. Our thoughts are your thoughts. Wah, you are dead, human. Without us, you have no life, no thought. If you will obey." Dooley stood rigid, the physical trauma evident on his face, but his will entirely suppressed. The voice continued, outlining their new orders. "You will take us to the central control room of this airship. Your memories will guide us. Your knowledge will teach us what we need to know, that we may destroy this human engine and thus show the world our power." Jennifer Walters, having returned to her human form to slip through the bars, wasted no time. Her mind was already concentrating, forcing the gamma energy to return, slowly turning her skin green even as she raced down the slick blue corridor toward the director's private office. Her fingers flexed, growing stronger as she slammed a bare hand onto the control panel, forcing the door open. Jennifer stepped inside what must have been Dugan's private sanctum, now fully green and powerful again, the white shirt clinging to her enormous frame. "So this is the top dog's office, huh? Not too shabby. Put a net at each end and you could play a fair game of basketball," she joked, but her attention was instantly snagged by a large monitor glowing nearby. Displayed on the screen was the face of a distressed woman. "Hello, what's that on the monitor?" Standing over the central command console, She-Hulk noticed the video feeds displayed on the screen tapes from her very own invasive medical examination. Her tone dripped with disgust. "Oh, marvelous. He's been watching tapes of my examination. Creeps like him could give perverts a bad name." She decided to take matters into her own hands. "Well, this console looks easy enough to operate, so I think I'll just pop the tape and put the spoilers on Conan the Barbarian right here and..." She slammed her hand down on the control board, ripping out the offending tape. But that action triggered something unexpected. The entire floor suddenly gave way beneath her, pitching her into a swirling pink vacuum below the desk. She-Hulk grabbed wildly at the console as she plummeted into a shocking empty drop. What the hell? She-Hulk's spontaneous sabotage of the director's console had disastrous immediate consequences. She tumbled through the gaping hole, surrounded by the confused, weightless bodies of the SHIELD agents who were also caught in the sudden internal vacuum. An agent screamed, utterly panicked. "What the hell's happening? The port main rotors, they've stopped turning." Looking out from the dizzying perspective, the full, shocking scale of the problem was revealed. High above the brilliant blue curve of the Earth, the immense SHIELD flying aircraft carrier was listing dangerously, tilting violently over into the black void of space. A horrified, tiny voice could be heard over the comms, shrieking, "She's tipping over!" Floating helplessly in the sudden zero gravity of the tilted helicarrier, SHIELD agents desperately tried to restore order. An engineer shouted, terrified, "That's impossible, there's been no power loss." "But it's happening. Somebody must have shut down the rotors deliberately." The bespectacled agent stared, his eyes wide in dawning horror. Who in God's name would be crazy enough to... "The prisoners. Check the prisoners." Another agent quickly glided toward the holding area. She escaped? Damn and blast it all. Dooley must have been right. She is hostile. She passed the empty cage, spotting Wyatt Wingfoot still floating in his secure cell. "Wingfoot's still in the holding pen, but I don't see any sign of the She-Hulk." In a frenzy of panic, the order went out to the remaining security teams. Shoot to kill. The SHIELD helicarrier was thrown into total pandemonium. The alert klaxons screamed through the massive hangar, an incessant, terrifying rhythm. Ah-ooh-ga, ah-ooh-ga. All flights scramble. Scramble, scramble. Jet jockeys and ground crew scrambled desperately, pushing fighter aircraft toward the launch points. A frantic commander yelled, "Move it, you jet jockeys! Get everything into the air! Move it, move it!" Another agent urged his pilot, "Hurry it up, Smitty! Another couple degrees and these birds'll slide." But it was already too late. A pilot cried out in horror, "Too late, Skipper! Look!" One of the expensive SHIELD jet fighters was sliding uncontrollably across the slanted deck, helpless against the sudden, disastrous tilt of the massive, gravity-defying carrier plunging into the atmosphere far below. Back on Earth, in a quiet urban neighborhood, an elderly baker in a white apron stood next to his car outside the local donut shop, a giant glazed donut marking the door. He stretched, ready for the day's routine, muttering, "Time to make the donuts." The mundane moment lasted only a breath before the sky tore open. With a furious, scorching descent, a massive jet wing, a piece of the failing helicarrier, slammed into the street just beside his car. The impact sent up a huge eruption of fire and shrapnel. The Baker yelled, diving away from his vehicle as the twisted metal of the wing and exploding pieces of a cockpit annihilated the world just inches from him. The battle in space was now raining down chaos upon the streets below. Up on the tilting flight deck, a desperate voice crackled over the radio, screaming, "Oh, Niner, you're going over the edge! Eject! Eject!" Another pilot, clad in a bulky white flight suit, ignored the frantic command, gripping the controls and shouting his refusal. "I'm gonna save this baby. Negative, negative." It was a futile gesture. The sleek gray fighter jet slid relentlessly off the massive carrier deck, plunging into the black abyss of space. The pilot fired the afterburners, a streak of orange against the dark, as the jet dropped toward the glow of Earth's atmosphere below. But the immense force of re-entry was too much. The fighter was engulfed in flames, a fiery red comet doomed to impact the unsuspecting world beneath. The jet, sleek and powerless, plunged rapidly through the purpling upper atmosphere, falling past another fighter that was struggling to gain altitude. Then, catastrophically, the plane tore apart in a gigantic, blinding explosion of yellow and red light, sending debris spiraling toward the ground. The pilot's heroic, desperate move to save his aircraft ended in fiery ruin, becoming nothing more than an airborne spectacle of destruction. The helicarrier continued its dangerous spiral. She-Hulk grabbed a handle, musing, "Doesn't look as if this crazy roller coaster is gonna let up. Better see if there's anything I can do about it." Suddenly, a ghastly figure tumbled through the open office floor and landed right on top of her. "What?" She-Hulk cried in disgust, recoiling from the touch. She grabbed the frayed cloak, peeling it back from the decaying flesh. "Oh, ick. What the heck is this thing? Looks and smells like it's been dead about 100 years?" The door opened, and the possessed Dooley stepped in, eyes cold and predatory, completely unconcerned by the stench of the corpse She-Hulk held. "And you're right. Now," he declared, his voice ringing with chilling command. She-Hulk stared at him, dawning horror in her eyes. "Huh. Hey, wait a minute. You're gonna join him, right now." Dooley, driven by the entity possessing him, raised the rifle and opened fire, the weapon shots. A nearby female agent shouted in horror, trying to stop the madness. "Wait, don't!" She pushed past Dooley, her face etched with disbelief. "Oh, geez, what have you done? She-Hulk wasn't responsible. It's Dooley." Dooley looked startled for a brief instant, perhaps the last flicker of his original personality. Suddenly, a massive green fist intercepted the rifle barrel. She-Hulk crushed the weapon instantly, the metal collapsing around her fingers. She held the destroyed gun, her eyes blazing with strength and contempt. "Isn't it lucky I'm bulletproof? You heard the lady, cowboy. Now, what's that about El Creepo?" The female agent looked utterly frantic as she relayed the last known facts. He came into the master control center, ordered everyone out. We knew he'd been put in charge, so we obeyed. Then all this started? She-Hulk, looking down at the tattered remnants of the white smock clinging to her enormous green frame, responded with a grim look. "I saw him leave his office a while ago. I thought something looked wrong even for him." She focused her gaze, serious now. "I'm beginning to smell a very large rat, and I'm going to do something about it. But not dressed like this. Get me something I can wear. Then we'll pay a visit on Mr. Dooley." A moment later, She-Hulk exploded through the corridor, instantly dressed in her familiar purple and black power suit. She sped past two stunned agents. "You men, report status," she barked, moving with purpose. The agents stared back, utterly baffled by her sudden escape and change of attire. The female agent quickly put herself between She-Hulk and the security door. "Hold your fire. She-Hulk is on our side." Jennifer smirked. "Well now, I wouldn't go quite that far, but I am anti-Dooley. He's in there?" She pointed toward a heavily armored security door leading to the central control center. "What about this security door? I suppose there's a reason I shouldn't just rip it open. I could use a couple good blows." Suddenly, Scientist Levine, the nervous man from the lab, appeared in the corridor, looking terrified and desperate. "Gaffer, that's the single most secure access in the whole system. She-Hulk, Rip it open and this area will seal and flood with HK-357, the most toxic nerve gas manufactured. She-Hulk turned, her expression turning lethal. You don't want unauthorized guys busting in or injecting anything into your nerve center, but that's internal defenses. What about outside? A technician frantically warned She-Hulk from across the corridor, "Be careful now, She-Hulk, there's no way to guarantee stability." She-Hulk gave him a confident, almost flippant retort. "Tell me something I don't know, Gaffer." The way this big bird's twirling, it's got gravity all hollowed out. In the control room, the corrupted Dooley, his voice flat and robotic, issued an order over the intercom. One unexpected thermal shift and you could get snatched up and tossed into the blades. She-Hulk, now in her purple suit and safety goggles, leapt across the chasm, swinging out from the main deck on a safety line, heading straight toward the rotors. "Thanks for the warning, I'll keep this quick." She positioned herself near the massive turbine rotor blades. "Okay, big talker, this is where there's the command center. You've only got one chance at this. Make it work." With a shattering impact, She-Hulk drove her enormous fist right through the thick, curved glass of the helicarrier's outer shell, exposing herself to the vacuum of space, aiming to reach the core controls before the full rotation of the massive vessel could destroy her. The shattered glass of the helicarrier hull crunched beneath She-Hulk's boots as she leaped into the control hub. She took a moment to survey the sleek, massive consoles. "So this is the heart and lungs of the beast, hmm? Oh, not too shabby. James Bond feel right at home." She frowned, seeing no immediate resistance. "But where's our resident bad boy? I expected him to be waiting with guns blazing, or at least the latest hustler." She suddenly cried out, a powerful, clammy hand seizing her arm. The possessed Dooley stood before her, his face a horrifying, mottled gray, stretched into a fixed, skeletal smile that revealed a mouthful of grotesque teeth. The voice that issued from him was alien, cold, and final. "Hey, you are foolish, human female. Now you will die, and in dying, serve us." She-Hulk stared into the face of the corruption, her confidence dissolving into genuine horror. "Oh my God." The chilling voice emanating from Dooley's warped face slithered into Jennifer's mind. "We have had many hosts since the first, the one called Campbell. That was long ago. So long, but never have we had a body such as yours. So strong, so lush, so full of the juices of life." Dooley lunged, the repulsive gray face coming dangerously close to hers. "You will serve us well, and for a long time." Jennifer screamed, pushing back desperately, horror replacing fear. "Oh no, you're full of... Stop it, what the hell do you..." She recognized the sickening source of the corruption just as she reacted. Cockroaches. With a surge of pure repulsion and power, She-Hulk grabbed the possessed agent and used a massive hip toss, hurling him across the control center. Dooley hit the ground and instantly exploded into a cloud of tiny, frantic, dark brown creatures scattering across the slick metal floor. The horrified female agent stared at the scattering insects and the empty uniform. He was some kind of colony of super-intelligent cockroaches? She-Hulk stepped heavily across the floor, crushing several of the creatures beneath her white boots. "Face it, Jenny Pooh. Any world that has you in it has lots of room for the impossible. So quit gawking and get these darn doors open." She ripped the high-security door off its hinges with effortless ease, revealing the terrified maintenance crew beyond. "All yours. Guys, good work, She-Hulk." "Or Relly, Mackie, get the port rotors running again fast." The agents, realizing that the giant green woman was their only hope, instantly obeyed. "Ah, it will do," the Gaffer. Even as they scrambled to save the massive vessel, the destruction continued. "Wow!" Far below, another piece of the helicarrier, too large and heavy to be secured, struck the ground in a gigantic, blinding explosion, sending massive waves of fire and debris across the landscape. A critical propulsion system tore loose from the stricken helicarrier in a massive burst of flame. The immense piece of machinery plunged through the atmosphere, trailing dark, oily smoke. Down below, the debris hit the ground with the force of a bomb, creating a colossal geyser of yellow and red fire. The explosion slammed directly into the little wooden house, the house where young Jennifer Walters first met her cousin Bruce Banner. This disastrous impact sent splinters, dirt, and fragments flying hundreds of feet into the air, destroying the very symbol of Bruce Banner's emotional origin. She-Hulk stared at the frantic scientist. What the? Levine rushed to explain the catastrophic failure. The panel was booby-trapped. Attempting to reactivate the rotors, exploded the controls and detonated the emergency ditch system. We've lost the entire port lift assembly. The bespectacled agent shouted a new urgent command to the remaining crew, his voice laced with panic. Westig, get to the intercoms. This baby's dead weight as of now. Order all personnel into the escape modules. Emergency stations crew only to stay aboard. Abandon ship. Outside, hundreds of oval-shaped escape pods jettisoned from the dying helicarrier, showering down toward the terrified landscape below. Levine urged She-Hulk toward the escape pods. You too, She-Hulk? There should still be a couple of pods left. She-Hulk shook her head firmly. Gaffer. I've got one deceptious Indian brave to bust out of the hoosegow before I cut out of this place. She turned to Haraz, the remaining agent. Harris, get over to the starboard controls. We've got to cut those lifters too. Oh! Harris stared, shocked. Oh! Gaffer, are you nuts? That's the only thing keeping us aloft. We'd crash for sure. She-Hulk gave him a hard look. We're gonna do that either way, Boobala. All we can do now is try to control how hard we hit. If we cut the starboard rotors, there's a chance the automatic gyros will level us out just enough. Levine, though terrified, agreed to the radical measure. Enough? Enough to do what? All right. I won't even ask. Lifters, cut. Down below, the inevitable crash continued. The immense helicarrier shuddered and a piece of debris detached, plunging toward the ground in a streak of fire. There she goes. Levine, still perched precariously over the control panel, shouted orders that defied all sense. Brace yourselves, everybody. I've reversed polarity on the vortex beams. Harris stared at him, aghast. The vortex beams? But they're to pull things up from the ground. Levine, gripping the console tightly, finished the insane command with grim determination. And now they're gonna push against the ground. Now! The massive, rounded piece of the flying aircraft carrier plunged out of the sky and slammed down onto the desert floor. The reversed vortex beams fired just before impact, blasting the ground with insane force. Instead of smashing into 1,000 pieces, the entire section bounced, enveloped by enormous, churning clouds of dust and pulverized earth, successfully ditching the helicarrier in a massive, dusty cushion. The voice of the engineer was frantic over the comms inside the plunging section. The ground's not uniform consistency. We're not gonna stay level. They were descending fast toward the barren desert. Impact in 6 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The massive section slammed into the desert floor with a blinding, explosive force, sending dirt and pulverized rock flying everywhere. Thanks to the reckless genius of reversing the vortex beams, the central control module survived the impact, cushioned by the displaced earth and dust. The crash was catastrophic, yet miraculously survivable. Despite the desperate last-minute efforts, the immense section of the helicarrier slammed down onto the desert floor like a dropped skyscraper. The emergency vortex beams, reversed by the frantic scientists, exploded a colossal cloud of earth and pulverized rock outward, cushioning the final impact. The wreckage rested, battered and scarred, in the midst of a violent yellow-orange dust storm. High above, military jets streaked past, bearing silent witness to the cataclysmic crash landing of SHIELD's ultimate floating fortress, now reduced to a monstrous piece of grounded, smoldering debris. High above the sprawling desert, a jet pilot frantically reported the disaster. "Hello, Control. Hello, Control. She's down. Repeat, the helicarrier has crash-landed. Too much dust and smoke to assess damage. Stand by for crash site coordinates." As the enormous dust clouds began to settle, the pilot gasped into the radio. Wait, it's clearing. Oh my God, nothing could have survived that. Nothing. Embedded deep in the desert floor was the mangled, massive spherical section of the helicarrier, a ruin of twisted metal and shattered technology still smoking from its violent plunge from orbit. The colossal wreckage settled into the earth with a groan that echoed across the vast, empty landscape, the metal slowly tearing itself apart. From the wreckage, She-Hulk emerged, cradling the slightly injured Harris. She hugged him tightly. Come on, love of my life, be okay, please be okay. Ew, Harris moaned weakly. Jen? Ooh, what happened? She-Hulk smiled, relieved he was conscious. Well, to coin a phrase, we fell down. Go boom. How are you, baby? Like one of James Bond's martinis, shaken but not stirred. I suspect I'll survive. Wyatt and Levine emerged from the wreckage. Ooh. Gaffer, you're okay too? She-Hulk asked, surprised. Wyatt managed a strained smile. Nothing broken, but hardly okay, She-Hulk. Maybe, maybe not. We're not finished here yet. Wyatt pointed off into the distance. Get us again, bright boy. As soon as Wyatt gets his wind back, we're out of here, even if it's 1,000 miles to the closest town. 35, actually. Just close enough to get blown to hell in about 20 minutes. She-Hulk grabbed Levine by the collar, shocked. What? What are you talking about? The scientist exclaimed grimly. The helicarrier's atomic pile. She-Hulk. I'm getting all kinds of nasty readings from it. I'd say it'll blow in about 20 minutes and vaporize everything within 100 miles, unless you can shut it down. She-Hulk gripped the terrified scientist by his lapels, her green eyes wide with disbelief. Me, Gaffer? You must have been knocked on the head. Levine, fueled by sheer panic, quoted dramatically, "The prospect of execution concentrates the mind wonderfully. You're our only hope, She-Hulk." Wyatt was skeptical. How do you figure that? Gaffer's it? She-Hulk is no scientist. Jennifer confirmed their desperate conclusion. No, but she's the strongest thing in this neighborhood, and if my guess is right about what's gone wrong with the pile, we'll need her strength. Maybe. But I'll just bet you haven't got a radiation suit in my size. Levine grimly confirmed her terrible advantage. No, but if my tests of your biostructure were accurate, and they were, you have a higher tolerance for radiation than us mortals. Wyatt challenged the injustice, his voice tight with anger. Jen, I don't care for this at all. These people kidnap you, poke and prod you, damn near kill you, and expect you to save their hides? She-Hulk admitted the thought had crossed her mind. It's not just them, Wyatt. If it was, I'd be tempted to toss you over my shoulder and be 100 miles away before this thing went kaboom. But that town, innocent civilians. She turned to Levine, who was huddled near the wreckage. He confessed the severity of the task. I just said she's got a better chance than us. I have no idea exactly what exposure to this kind of radiation in these quantities could do to her already irradiated cells. Jennifer gave him a look of weary sarcasm. But look at it this way, She-Hulk. If you do it, you may not be hurt. That's some kind of choice you've whipped up for me there, Gaffer. With a resigned sigh, Jennifer Walters pushed the dread away. What do I have to do? She moved quickly, scrambling over the twisted, blue metal wreckage of the helicarrier's interior toward the danger zone. She located the compartment where the reactor was housed, marked clearly by a flashing sign warning of radiation. With a massive heave, she ripped open the final access panel, plunging down into the glowing yellow-green core. The heat and gamma energy were instantly intense, filling the air. Down below, the floor was slick with some dark fluid, and crawling across the metal surface were dozens of the same repulsive, super-intelligent cockroaches that had possessed Dooley. She-Hulk recoiled slightly, pushing past the creatures to reach the source of the meltdown. She-Hulk landed in the irradiated core, looking around the green-lit, twisted chamber. What the is why, God, the cockroaches. The creatures, now disturbed by her presence, began crawling up her legs and boots. She jumped back in revulsion, stamping her feet. Oh no, like problems of Era Millowers. The tiny brown bodies swarmed together in a rapid, horrifying wave, instantaneously covering her entire body, obscuring her in a solid, teeming mass of insects. Whoa! Outside the massive, crashed section of the helicarrier, Wyatt paced anxiously. What's taking so long? Something should have happened by now. Damn it all, I should have gone with her. Levine shook his head, holding his broken scanner. And accomplished what? Wingfoot? You'd only have gotten yourself a lethal dose of hard radiation. And believe you me, radiation poisoning is a lousy way to die. Besides, I think we're safe, assuming she's successfully closed down the pile. If she hadn't, we'd all have gone poof by now. Wish I hadn't dropped my scanner. Wyatt looked at Levine with a cold expression. But not so awful that you wouldn't risk exposing Jen. She-Hulk to it? Wyatt continued, his voice tight. So the pile hasn't blown. That tells us nothing. She could still be lying dead in there. And I don't much care for the prospect of life without her. We either love talking or doing things, or both. Suddenly, a grotesque, towering figure covered entirely in dead cockroaches emerged from the wreckage, dripping green fluid and brown insects. Wyatt rushed forward, shielding his eyes from the dust cloud the figure left behind. Jen, are you all right? The figure lifted its head. It was She-Hulk, battered, covered head to toe in a revolting carapace of crushed insects, but smiling triumphantly. Well, I could use a shower or 12. Yeah, I guess I'm okay. Never squashed so many roaches in my life, but I'd say we won. Epilogue 1, New York, 3 days later. Reed Richards examined She-Hulk as she lay in his Fantastic Four lab. All right, Jennifer, you're clean. No sign of roach contamination anywhere in your system. Jennifer sighed dramatically, still lying on the examination table in her costume. That's a relief. I think I've taken 50 showers in the last 70-odd hours, and I still feel like those little buggers are crawling all over me. Reed, seated beside her, nodded, his scientific curiosity piqued. Not surprising. Truly remarkable intelligence, say cockroach intelligence, using human corpses as hosts. You're certain you can shed no further light on how such a creature came into existence? She-Hulk sat up, looking pensive. Just what the thing said about having been around a long time, and how it clearly thrived on radioactivity. That's undoubtedly the key. Some kind of mutation, probably caused by exposure to hard radiation. An old atomic test, perhaps. A pity we don't have one or two of the individual roaches to study. She-Hulk crossed her powerful legs, her humor returning. Sorry, once I got started, the only way to keep from woofing my cookies was to concentrate on gooshing all of them. But there's something else, isn't there, Reed? I get the feeling that you're talking around some bad news. Reed's expression turned serious, his voice softening with reluctance. You're not going to die or become ill or anything of that nature, no more than the rest of us. But yes, I'm afraid I am, Jennifer. You see, the exposure to S.IELD's atomic pile did affect you. It's put a genetic lock on the radiation already in your cells. But I'm afraid you're She-Hulk permanently now. You can never become Jennifer Walters again. Reed Richards watched her closely, his expression grave, echoing the finality of his diagnosis. I'm sorry, Jem. Jennifer Walters, the sensational She-Hulk, sat silent on the examination table for a long, heavy moment. The brilliant green skin, the towering strength, the wild, vibrant hair, all features she had once been able to shed, were now irrevocably hers. The old Jennifer was gone. She stared at the floor, absorbing the reality that she would be this magnificent, formidable creature forever. But then, true to her core, her resilience snapped back into place. She lifted her chin, meeting Reed's sympathetic gaze with a hard, resilient glint in her emerald eyes. She shrugged off the irreversible curse of her new life with trademark confidence, dismissing the entire weight of his devastating diagnosis with a simple, challenging smirk. Jennifer and Wyatt lay in bed, exhausted but safe. Wyatt was giving her a gentle foot massage. She-Hulk smiled, blissfully content. Remind me to put you up for sainthood, baby, or at least get those magic fingers registered with the Guinness people. Now, Jen, I've told you my tribe's ancient massage techniques are secret, but you certainly seemed like you needed something to relax you, after all, to discover you're stuck as the She-Hulk. Jennifer shrugged off the news easily. That's really not a problem, lover. I've always preferred being She-Hulk. That's why I hardly changed back to my original self. Wyatt paused, looking down at her. But there is something else. From what S.IELD was able to determine, the cockroach creature came aboard as one of the civilians grabbed along with us, right? Yes. Probably the old bagman. Why does that bother you? Jennifer sat up, her face serious now. Because it means they knew, Wyatt. The cockroaches knew what S.IELD was going to do and when. And as far as I can figure, there's only one way they could have known. And honey, it's something I don't even want to think about. The camera panned away, leaving the question hanging, as a cockroach, brown and red, crawled along the windowsill above the city.